The film begins in New York City, where John Wick and his pit bull have taken refuge in the Bowery King. John rides the boat until his knuckles bleed, and BK comes over and asks if he's ready to take on the bar table. John simply says yes. John travels to Morocco, where he hunts on horseback the men who work for the elders. After killing these men, John confronts the elder about the ring. Despite being told that the ring is missing, John executes the elder before leaving. Returning to New York, Winston and Sharon are summoned by Harbinger to a meeting with the Marquis of Greymont, who's been dispatched from the high table. They learn of the elder's execution, and the Marquis reprimands Winston for not killing John. As a result, the Marquis denounced the New York Continental and had it blown up. Winston is considered excommunicated, and to make matters worse, the Marquis shoots Sharon in the chest. Winston was by his friend's side when he was about to die, and he said that he should have been the one to die. In Paris, a blind assassin named Cain stands in a park while his daughter Maya plays the violin. Cain is asked by the Marquis to pursue John. Cain says he is retired, but Marquis threatens Mia's life if Cain refuses the High Council's orders. John goes to the Osaka Continental, run by his old friend Koji Shima, where his daughter Akira is the concierge. Koji meets John on the roof and agrees to give him secret shelter. Akira does not believe John is there, but Marquis' right-hand man, Chitty, soon appears with a group of hitmen and lures John out. Koji's men appear and fight high-ranking assassins, shooting arrows in the darkness. When the killers reach the roof, John grabs a gun and starts doing what he does best. While Koji's guards were able to repel most of the assassins, Cain arrived and began counting his own bodies. He sets traps so he can reach where his targets are before killing the men with his sword and gun. Meanwhile, Akira joins the fight and executes some of Chitty's men, but ends up being shot and wounded. As John continues to fight more men, he helps her and Koji escape, defeating several with his nunchaku. He is discovered by Cain, and the two consider each other former friends. Therefore, although Cain is hesitant to pursue John, he does so for Maya's sake. John and Cain argue briefly before John runs away. During the shootout, the pursuers, Mr. Nobody and his German Shepherd, are nearby, and he kills some of the gunmen who were chasing John. He also wants to sign a contract for John's head, but claims that the current amount of $20 million is not enough. So now he is helping John while Koji and Akira are missing. They meet Cain. He and Koji are also old friends, but Koji does not allow Cain to pursue John, and they end up dueling with swords. When it became clear that Koji would be allowed to leave, he continued the fight until Cain dealt him the fatal blow. Akira, holding the body of her dying father, grabs her sword and tries to kill Cain, but Akira convinces her not to suffer the same fate as her father, and she tells him that they will meet again. Akira goes to the station, finds John there, and blames John for his father's death. She tells him to kill Cain, or she will. Winston meets with the Bowery King, both of whom are aware that their proximity to John makes them a target. Meanwhile, Harbinger tells the Marquis about the unnecessary bloodshed on the Osaka continent. But he says the Marquess not only needs to kill John Wick, he needs to destroy the idea that John Wick is untouchable and unkillable. Afterwards, Mr. Nobody visits the Marquis and demands a contract of $23 million to assassinate John. The Marquis responds by stabbing him in the hand and is forced to choose between drawing a knife and cutting corners to find out where his ambitions lie. When Mr. Nobody pulled his hand out and cut between his fingers, the Marquis agreed to comply with his request. John meets Winston at Karen's grave to express his condolences for his friend's death. Winston wants to return to Marquis, so he tells John that he must challenge Marquis to a duel in order to gain his freedom from the bar table, even though it is believed that a duel on the bar table is just a myth. Only his family can support John's endeavors, however. The Romans of Russka tore up the ticket and severed ties with him. Seeing that she has no other choice, John agrees to look for her. John goes to Luska Roman in Berlin, where a priest fires a shotgun at him and puts a noose around his neck. He was greeted by his adopted sister Katya, who was furious with John because he had ordered the execution of her father Peter, who had killed the elder, and the Marquis would have approved of John's duel. John goes to Kiris's nightclub after tracking John. Cain and Mr. Nobody are also there. The three participate in a card game with Kira, who cheats before unleashing his henchmen on the three assassins. While Kane and Nobody fight off the thugs, John chases Kira around the club among unsuspecting patrons. Joan decapitates Kira with a card and fights him, but Kira counters John with his strength and weight. The men of Kyr's pursue John with a predictably bloody end. Killis pushes John off the balcony, but it's not enough to stop him. Joan eventually corners Killis and pushes him down the stairs, causing him to fall to the ground, killing him as he falls headfirst into the ground. Later, John takes one of Kyr's gold teeth to Cassia as proof of Kyr's death, and Katia responds favorably and helps John with the ritual of branding her with her family crest and receiving support for the duel. Winston visits the Marquis with a formal objection to John's duel. The Marquis tries to refuse, but Winston reminds him that he is still bound to the High Table and its customs and must deal with them. Furthermore, Winston demands that if John wins, he will lift his excommunication, rebuild the mainland without punishment, and restore his leadership, so to speak. However, the Marquess urged Winston to become John's deputy. So if John dies, he will die too. Joan arrives to sit down with Marquis while Harbinger presides over discussing the terms of the duel. They gather at sunrise at Esquire in Paris and engage in a duel with their weapons. If either is not filed by the deadline, the penalty automatically expires and becomes grounds for enforcement. Kane becomes the Marquis' representative and agrees to give him and his daughters freedom if he can kill John. John goes to church and pays his respects to Helen. Kane meets him there amicably and tells him about Maya and what he has to lose. John later meets Winston and the Bowery King, who give him new weapons and a bulletproof suit. Harbinger reminds the Marquis of what will happen at the High Table if he is killed by John. In order to prevent John from making it to the Saker course in time, Marquis uses Chitty and his men to track him down. The radio DJ also tells the other assassins listening that there is a bounty on John's head for anyone who can kill him before sunrise. As John heads to Sacré-Cœur, dozens of assassins pursue him. He takes on gunmen on the street, gets stuck in traffic around the Arc de Triomphe, shoots bad guys to death, and runs them over with cars. The High Table tracks his whereabouts, and more assassins are on his trail. John enters a warehouse full of bad guys and sets off explosives at them. At the same time, no one helps in defeating some of the assassins, and they contact Marquis to demand a higher reward. Marquis eventually agrees to a $40 million contract to lure the more desperate killer. John eventually reaches the stairs leading to Sacré-Cœur and kills several more assassins before Chitty appears and pushes him down the stairs. Kane shows up to help John rise to the top and kill Chitty's people. No one comes and fights him as Chitty throws the dog into the roadway. Chitty collapses with John's help. The dog bit him in the balls, but no one shot him in the head. Just in case, the dog also pees on Chitty's face. John arrived just before the sun rose. He and Kane pick up pistols and have an old-fashioned duel. Both manage to attack each other twice. In the third round, Kane shoots John in the abdomen, but John does not shoot. Marquis then orders him to undergo a coup to kill John Wick. He grabs the gun and points it at John, but Winston tells him he's an arrogant bastard and reminds him that John hasn't fired the last shot. Marquis realizes he's too late before John gets his brains blown out. The Forerunners then explain that both John and Kane have been released from their obligations to the High Table. John goes back up the stairs, thinks about Helen for a moment, says her name, and collapses. John Wick dies as a free man. Winston and Bowery King buried John next to Helen and covered the headstone as their beloved husband had requested. BK asks Winston if he thinks John is in heaven or hell, to which Winston replies, "Who knows?" And the two walk away while BK continues to take care of John's dog. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed this film recap and want more, subscribe now, like, and share captivating stories with your friends. Tell me which movie you'd like me to summarize next. See you soon.